It is a muggy day here in Pennsylvania, beginning of September. I'm getting ready for the late October, early November rut buck hunting that I'm going to do here in Pennsylvania. I'm doing that now to get ready ahead of time. This video is about some tips and tricks for you scouting for crossbow hunters, getting set for ground hunting, the whole bit. That's this video. That's this episode of Death by Bungee. I am down here in the hemlocks, not too far from where I shot my buck in 2016. It's real tempting to set up along the same trail, the same scrape, everything, same as before. But one little tip I'm going to give you about scouting is you got to keep it up to date. The woods changes. Deer patterns change. They will change year from year. Sometimes they won't change all that much and you can set up in the same stand year after year and shoot deer. And I probably could still do that here. But you have to check out what's happened. In this particular area, and it might be different where you are, I've had a lot of flooding, a lot of water running through here. And that changes deer patterns. Years ago, I set up a real nice stand behind me over here. Thought it was the perfect location. The previous year, there had been all these deer coming through there. It was like a little hub coming out of the swamp. What I didn't take into account was a little farther out of the swamp, the beavers had changed the landscape, and all of a sudden the deer couldn't get through there anymore because it was a pond, little pond. But the deer had to go around and come up on this side. So I was seeing deer, they just weren't going down that trail anymore. My scouting, my information, my reconnaissance information was not up to date. And you need to do that every year. Update what you do. Trail cameras are great for that. Walking around looking for sign is great for that. And the good news is, when I was out here looking, it's very clear to me that I have some nice trails over here right in the same location where we had all that activity back in 2016. This will be a great spot for me to build a little ground blind. And in the context of doing that, because I'm doing scouting videos, I am going to show you where I'm going to put that blind. Hopefully show you how I put it together, why I picked the location that I picked, and we'll go from there. How about some sound with our video? Genevieve is still gathering bones and collecting her bones and doing her little stuff there. She's going to walk around, and I asked her while she's doing that, look for deer trails and be able to report back to me her new intelligence that she gathers. All that good stuff. For those of you asking about doing hunts on the cheap, right? Budget hunting. You've asked for those videos. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of that information in here. Don't have a lot of experience with this stuff. I'm kind of looking forward to your comments and suggestions as well. But you can see on the ground behind me, we walked in today. That's one of the reasons I'm sweating pretty good. But I cut down these aren't ash. These are 2 beech tree branches that I'm going to use for my mock scrape. 2 of them. And they are beech because the nut-bearing trees, the mast-producing trees, in my experience, hold their leaves a little bit better. These have started to die because I cut them off. I'm going to install them. I've done other videos on that. Go back and watch those. I'm going to install these 2 in a to-be-determined location where I've got a nice 20-yard shot at whatever is using the licking branches. I'm going to install those today. I brought a drill, cordless drill, screws, all that good stuff with me. Hand saw to remove the branches. I'm going to build a ground blind with the hand saw. And I'm going to hunt from the ground and do all this stuff from the ground. There's no four-wheelers involved, no Ranger involved, no tractors, nothing. No man-made blind down here or anything. I'm hunting from the ground. Again, I mentioned this in the other video. Check the legalities of how you're hunting. Sometimes you got to use a man-made blind, like in spring gobbler. Here in Pennsylvania, you got to be covered 360 degrees and above with man-made materials. You can't brush it in or anything like that. Safety reasons. Pay attention to your local regulations. You can see behind me right here, this trail is well traveled. And over here in front of me, where my buck came from back in 2016, came over here to use a licking branch. The licking branch is used up, but there is a scrape left over from last year. I'm sure that'll get some activity this year as well, but we're showing some good activity. The key with a licking branch is I want to put it someplace where the deer will come in, where they'll be 20 yards from me, stop, work the scrape a little bit, work the licking branch, and maybe I'll get a shot. Part of me hates filming down here because I'm standing right in the path where the deer are working this, where they are walking back and forth, and you want to stay out of that as much as possible. I will lay low. I'll check cameras. I'm going to put cameras all over through here, but I'm going to lay low until it's time to come down here and hunt. I'll come in here now and then, but not very much. And I will be spraying down my boots very aggressively as the season gets closer, so we shouldn't have a problem with that either. Behind me, you can see the rub that my 2016 buck started, but never got to finish. Go check out that video if you haven't seen it. But that shows you the power of these mock scrapes, of these licking branches. When you set this stuff up, it's a great place to, you're not going to pull a deer from the neighbor's property onto your property with one of these mock scrapes, but you are going to get a deer that walks through to check that out and give you a shot. That's a possibility. That's a real likelihood if it's in a well-traveled area. The deer don't go out of their way to use that, but man, if they're walking by, they're not going to miss it. They're going to stop and check it out. It's kind of like me going by a Dunkin' Donuts, you know. I'm going to stop and see what they got for iced coffee before I go too far. It's just how it is, right? The key here is going to be finding a tree. Now, I'm going to switch trees. And that's a little bit of a risk. They're already using this. There's actually some sign that they're using that old mock scrape, that old licking branch that I put in place. I hate to switch it up, but that's not in a good spot. There's all these other giant trees, right? We got all these other big hemlocks and stuff like that here, and that's going to get in my way of getting a shot at these deer. I'm going to be setting up on the other side of the creek. Now, why would I set up on the other side of the creek? Very good question. I'm glad you asked. The reason I'm setting up on the other side of the creek is because that's where I come from, right? That's where the house is. So I'll be walking in from down there. The sound down here is covered a little bit by the compressor station. All right, I'll give you a little bit of quiet with that and we can hear that. But my sound that I make coming in and out might be covered a little bit by that compressor station. The wind also, I've mentioned this in another video, very important. The wind will be coming from over here or up there. Typically, I mean, you know, there's times in the fall when we get an easterly wind, but it's rare. But you got to look at that ahead of time. But generally, that's how the wind is going to move. That's the predominant wind. If the wind is right and I hunt this stand, they should be coming from over here in the swamp. They should be coming from over here, coming down this way, or they might be coming off the neighbors this way. They'll come around the swamp. Now, there is a trail right here that goes through the swamp. I don't see an awful lot of activity on that, but it might still be usable. Sometimes the beavers change the course of travel through there, and you got to keep an eye on that, right? You got to update your information. But this trail runs this way, okay, along the creek. They'll be coming from behind me here, and if they come across, I'll be over there shooting this way. If I get them to stop, they'll be looking away from me. I'll put the branch on a tree facing this way so that they'll be working that branch with their back to me at exactly 20 yards. That's the hope. If you look right here, there is a big old stump. It's from a big old birch tree that died years ago, laying there, right? I think actually it was timbered off in the 90s, if I remember correctly. But that big old stump was where I was going to build my little blind. The stump, really good because it protects me from that side where the deer will be coming. They won't see me coming in. Any movement they won't pick up when I don't realize they're there. And as they get closer, then I'll have stuff in front of me, so they won't see me here. I'll have stuff all the way around me, with a shooting lane coming out here toward that scrape tree, which is right there. The problem with that is, if you look, I don't know if it's picking it up nice, but that's right in the sun. There's an opening of trees there where the canopy was opened up because that tree was there. When it was cut out, it left all the other trees, but there's still a lot of sunlight coming in there. When the sun's out, right now it's a little bit cloudy, but there's been a time or two since I've been standing here where that light's right up, and I don't want that to be like a spotlight on me, drawing attention to me. Instead, I think I'm going to trim some of this back, sit over here in the shadows. What do you think about that? It'll still give me, if I do it in the right spot, there's trees all along the creek here, and those trees will block some of the view. I'll be sitting over there, and I am going to be directing my shot this way. And if they come in and work that scrape, if I put it in the right spot and put my blind in the right spot, I should have an opening when they're on the scrape. Maybe before, maybe after, but I don't need a lot of openings because I don't think they're going to walk past that scrape. If they walk through here and they don't even stop at the scrape, then I deserve to not have a shot. I'll try and stop them at a farther shot, maybe a 25 or 30 yard shot. I'll measure that out. But if they don't stop at the scrape, that's kind of my fault. Plus, I'm going to put a camera here. I'm going to monitor the activity. right over that scrape. I am also going to check back and see if there's visible disturbance, if they're working the scrape on the ground. If they are working a branch, the camera will tell me that. If they're working the ground, the scrape under it that they start, that they build, the camera will tell me that, and the ground will tell me that, right? I'll be able to tell very easily. So once I made that determination, then we'll be able to decide if it's going to come together or not. And we got 2 months from then, right? I'm doing this in the beginning of September. This is Labor Day weekend. In fact, today is Labor Day. So we got plenty of time to find out whether this is going to work. The key is setting up my ground blind, my natural blind over here, in a way that can see both the rub and the scrape, both. And when I'm all done, we'll see how this works.
We eat pokies and subs, not grinders. Here we call it soda or pop. Philadelphia cream cheesesteak noodles or barbecue is perfectly hot.
Now I've got the microphone on and I've hit record, so it'll record everything that I say, video and audio. How cool is that? Fortunately, I did a better job on the mock scrape than I have done dictating this or filming this. The scrape went in good. The licking branches went in really good, okay? Pretty happy with those. I think they look pretty good, and if I was a buck, I would use them, that's for sure. But I want to show you, if you got questions about how I do this stuff, there's other videos. I've done other videos on this stuff. I'll show you the screws that I use. Right here, you can kind of see they're the galvanized screws. I used 3 inches this time to get a real good purchase on a tree, and I angled the drill bit down, flat drill bit down to make the hole. And that way the weight of the branch, it'll suspend the branch a little bit better. And the same thing here on this guy. This guy goes straight out. And I angled them at this angle on this side of the tree because over there is where I'll have my blind, where I'll be sitting. So the deer will be working this that way. Should be about 15 yards to the deer's vitals. Pretty sweet. Now, for those of you who are like me, and you don't like drilling holes in trees, and you don't like cutting trees for no reason, because that's how I am, there's some good news. The reason I use the galvanized screws for this is because they come out real easy. The regular ones, sheetrock screws, those rust out here in the woods, and they're harder to get out. You can get them out, but they're harder to get out. The galvanized ones come right out, no problem whatsoever. So they came right out, and you can see here with this branch, when I break, see if I'm in focus here, when I break this branch off, see, break the branch off, it leaves that hole filled. Now, that's not a perfect. Tree'd be a lot happier if it didn't have a little hole in it. But plugging that so the water goes down over it and all that stuff can't hurt. So basically, I'm just going to break these other 2 off, do the same thing. And when we're done, we'll have those holes filled. Everybody will be happy. Hopefully. This is where I talked about, and the sun comes and goes here. But right now, I'm kind of standing where it would be nice and bright, where the sun was shining here. And that's a really great piece of landscaping. A really great piece of a natural, really good example of a natural occurring thing to start your blind, right? Like I could build a blind right out of that, and that would block me 100% from that view. They wouldn't see me. They come in here, get in front of me on the trail over here behind me. Everything would work out good. I really like that, but problem is, it's right here in the sun, and I think that that'll illuminate my movement. I don't want them to see me. I don't want them to pick me out. The other problem with right here is you can see this trail. You got to keep your eyes open. This little tip. Keep your eyes open when you're scouting. Really, that's all scouting is looking at stuff, right? Why is this here? Why does it look that way? This bank, if you look up here, a little bit of erosion, quite a bit of erosion actually, and the bank gets real steep. Down here, they don't have to jump off it. They have sort of pushed this down over time, and this is where the deer cross. You look through there, that's where they cross. They're going to be walking across right here. This is the other side of that. So they might come over here, get a drink or something like that. 5 yards from me is too close. I don't want them that close. They'll smell me, they'll see me, whatever else. I'd love to get a 5-yard shot someday, but it's not going to happen here. I don't want to set myself up for that. I want to set myself up for that 20-yard shot. That's what I want to set myself up for. Over here, there's a little bit where I'm going to be setting up our natural blind. There's a little bit of a spot where the deer have been coming up on there, and they might just walk up the creek a little bit. They're not jumping off that bank on the other side, but I will fix that today by putting a big old obstruction in the way. I'm going to cut a little tree, drop it on there, and that will deter their movement so they won't be walking through there. Hopefully that'll work. I really like that idea. The other thing I want to show you before I get out of here, before I start doing that, because we're going to do this blind in stages. I really believe that a natural blind can be just as ominous, just as much of a sore thumb to deer as a man-made blind. If it pops up overnight, it's something that has changed in their home, and they're going to notice it. They're going to be suspicious of it. So I'm going to do this gradually over time. Hopefully that will help. Every time I come in to check the camera, weekly or whatever else, check all the cameras. I got cameras all throughout here. But every time I go through here and do that, I'm going to add to it and build it up a little bit more. But I just wanted to show you this before we head out of here. Look at that. Does that get you excited or what? Gets me excited. Well, that's last year's. It's going to be about 10 yards from the natural blind that I'm putting in over there. But I'm thinking by the time a deer gets here to this, he will have already hit that one, hopefully. We'll get a shot over there. If not, I'll leave a shooting lane open right here for where they come across the creek. And when they come up on this little lip right here, I'll get a shot at them. I will have that available right here. It'll be a 10-yard shot, but if that's what it comes down to, and if I build the natural blind right with enough obstructions and enough obstructing a view, I should be able to get that kind of movement. When they're paying attention to crossing the creek, I should be able to move and get a shot. We'll figure it out. Play it by ear. I got my little Huey Man saw, and I found a perfect candidate to start our natural blind. I hate cutting live trees, I really do, but this is a scroungy looking tree. It's tipped right over, the erosion has gotten to it. It's basically a root sticking out of the ground. It's a hemlock. There's plenty of healthy, nice hemlock here. This gives me a long trunk that I can suspend over there and use that to block deer movement coming across the creek in front of me, so they're not walking in on me. And I can also use this, the bushy end on the end, to sort of create the obstruction over here and tie it in with the existing hemlocks. So this will work. It's going to be a perfect candidate for this.
I don't want to change. Why can't everything stay the same? I don't want to change. Why can't everything stay the same? One day even more showed up. A whole new batch. Gotta protect my heritage. I gotta start from scratch. White trucks and cowboy hats all around my town.
Here we are, 2 weeks later. I've been to Maryland. Bungie and I have conquered Maryland. We brought back 2 does and a buck this year. It was a great early crossbow season in Maryland. We had a great time, nice safe time. Everything went smoothly. All the deer are now processed and in the freezer, ready for a canning session at a later date, ready to be made into jerky at a later date. I've been posting a lot on the Facebook page about that because I'm pretty excited about processing the deer. That's the highlight for me. You know, that's really the big takeaway lots of times. But I'm sitting down here now in the hemlocks, and while I'm looking at the hemlocks, actually I'm sitting right on the side of the creek, looking across at the hemlocks. The old 2016 buck rub is in full force and effect. It has a nice shine to it in the light. I am very excited about this location. Probably won't hunt this until late October, so I'm working on it. I'm building a natural man-made blind. A man-made blind out of natural materials, I guess. But I want to build this gradually, at least in my head. It makes sense to gradually introduce this landscape change to the deer rather than they walk through here one day it's not here, and then the next day they walk through it and it's here. Now we did bring the bench down, okay? I am sitting on the Rigby. It's this nice bench. Genevieve names them after cartoon characters. The other one up in the blind is called the Margaret. This is the Rigby, I guess. So whatever works, you know. Some people name their big bucks. I name benches that I hunt off of. And I name food plots and stuff like that. But we all got our things. Things that motivate us, things that drive us. This bench that we have here, Genevieve actually helped me bring in today. But people always ask me, what about low budget hunting ideas? What if I don't have a whole bunch of land or four-wheelers or tractors, all that kind of stuff? Well, I'm going to focus on doing some videos that'll help people in those circumstances. And what we did today, we just got an old plastic sled. We threw this bench on here, the old Rigby, and dragged it down in here. More specifically, Genevieve dragged it down in here, but it was downhill the whole way. Taking it out of here might be a little more difficult, but it sure beat carrying it. The one with the apple trees, I just carried in over my shoulder. My back was pretty used up after doing that. This is a much better way of doing it. Low budget does not mean uncomfortable. You know what I mean? This is low budget hunting at its finest. Luxury low budget hunting. I got this nice bench here, and the reason I've set it up here is because I got these 2 hemlocks to break me up a little bit. I'll be sitting here in full camo, and I'll have plenty of room for crossbow in front of me. Won't be hitting any branches or anything like that. Set all that up in advance, and I will have room for a camera tripod. There's a mosquito there. I do have bug spray on, but there's mosquitoes down here. You gotta watch that stuff. I'll be set up right here, camera tripod, be able to catch the deer coming in perhaps. At least have spots for my field cam off to my left or right or both. I don't know, maybe I'll have 2 field cams and the bungee cam all rigged up and ready to go. Should be able to get a nice clean shot on a deer from here. You have already seen the footage from the trail camera over the past 2 weeks to see if our mock scrape, our licking branches, our rub, see if any of that got any activity. You've already seen that. I haven't seen it, so you know more about this setup than I do. Maybe it isn't going to work. I don't know. It was set on video, and I can't look at the videos in here. I did, however, have the camera that's set up on the apple tree behind me right up on the hill. I have that set on pictures, and I looked at that, and there's just way too many pictures to look at. It was a banner 2-week period for the apple tree. It looks like there's just tons and tons of deer going in there. A lot of this stuff is just trial and error. You're going to set up one season, maybe adjust halfway through the season as the deer's moods change, as they go in and out of the rut, what have you. Part of it is your next season, you're going to get rid of what didn't work and build on what worked, but keep it up to date with modern information about your location. Scouting, you always got to keep your eyes open as to what deer are doing. But a lot of it's trial and error. And I want to also be clear, there's no right or wrong answer to any of this stuff necessarily. Think of the way I look at it is this. Like I could be completely wrong on everything I just told you about this location. And this might not work at all, right? We're going to find out together. But I'm pretty confident about this plan. It builds on previous plans. And it's based on modern, up-to-date information about deer behavior and movement. It should work. The way I look at it, if you can think about what you're doing and express it in words that make sense to you and make sense to your friends, your hunting buddies, then it's a good plan, right? Listen to criticism, but there's no right or wrong answer. And if they disagree with you, your friends on Facebook, what have you, if they disagree with you, they could be completely wrong. They really aren't sitting there looking at all the information you're looking at. But if you can put in words why you think you're going to be successful, why it's a good plan, then give it a shot, right? But listen to criticism and build on it and change, trial and error, adjust as you go along. But have a plan going in. But if you can put that plan in words, now it's time to put it in action, see if it works. I hope you got something out of these scouting videos. I really hope you do. I can't wait to hunt this location. Probably late October, but we got a handful of Maryland videos coming very soon that I'm going to share with you, and hopefully you'll enjoy those as well. I will talk to you soon, and until next time, all hail Bungie! Thank you, kid. Make sure to turn the mic on. Make sure I'm in focus. Why aren't we focused? There we go. All right. Now we can do it. Let's jiggle in here. Oh, the mic is not screwed down. There we go. Now we should be able to shoot a video. This is where I talked about, and the sun comes and goes here. Why you no focus on my face? Well, I'll tap on it then. Yeah. What do you think of that? Focus on the face. What's going on? I did that whole thing without being focused on the face. That's just great. There's a blooper for you. But anyway,